Hello and welcome to Secret Life Gardens. I'm Lydia Bissler. And just like that, we're into spring. On the 14th, we move the clocks forward an hour, and on the 20th, we slip into more daylight hours than night. With that extra time in the evening in the garden, you can explore the crocuses which seemingly emerge out of nowhere and the gently nodding form of the narcissus. This year, we're off to a little bit later start than last spring, where we had an unseasonably warm early spring. But now, the plum trees are bursting with their ephemeral blooms, and the peas are beginning to emerge out of the ground. It's the time of year for outdoor jobs, where any effort put in now will pay off tenfold in the summer. Picking weeds now means less to go to seed tomorrow, and squishing aphids now means exponentially less the next day. I personally love any excuse to get outside this time of year. And now that the chance for hard frost has passed, one of the first things that I like to do is cut back ferns. If you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest, you know that ferns grow abundantly here. This is a sword fern, one of the most common ferns seen in the Portland, Oregon area. It grows on the forest floor here, and it's an evergreen. Now, if you look at the fronds, this time of year, they're starting to look a little bit ratty. They made it through a hot and dry summer, and then through a long, damp winter. You'll also notice if you examine the crown of the plant itself, that new fiddleheads, those new fronds, are starting to emerge. That means this is the perfect time of year to cut back that old growth, which may have some sun damage on it, and make way for fresh new spring growth. So you don't want to wait too late to do this. If the fiddleheads really start to come out and emerge, you could risk damaging them. They're fairly delicate when they first come out. And you don't want to cut back too early, as the old growth, all the old leaves, protect the plant from hard frost. So if you're in the Portland, Oregon area, March and early April are the perfect time of year to do this. Just go into the plant, cut in hard, get rid of all the old growth, and then your plant may look a little bit stubby for a couple of weeks, but in no time at all, you'll have fresh, new green growth ready to take you through the rest of the year. This is also the perfect time of year, if you're an Oregon resident, to go into our state forest and actually collect some ferns to bring home with you and put into your garden. Just do the same thing to the plant. Go and cut it back super hard, cut up a nice big root ball, and bring it into your yard. That's actually how we got a lot of our sword ferns. It's free, and it's a great way to create native habitat in your garden and have some year-round interests. With the shift in seasons, it's time to start planting the spring garden. All of these starts came up from the basement and they're ready to go outside. They can't just be planted right away in the garden though. They need to be hardened off first. Hardening off can sound more mysterious than it is, but it's just the gradual process of acclimating plants that are used to the indoors to the outdoors. I go pretty slowly with my hardening off process, especially early in the spring when the temperature variation from the warm seed starting room can be pretty large compared to the chilly spring weather that we get. I take 2 weeks getting them used to wind, weather, direct sunlight. All of these things can actually shock your seedlings that are used to comfy indoor environments. So gradually I'll start to bring them up from the basement. First I'll even just put them in a sunny window for maybe a day, and then I'll bring them outdoors for short periods of time. At first I'll never let them have direct sunlight. I'll maybe put them on the table and then bring them in at night or put them out for a few hours. It really depends on the weather and the plant. You just want to go gradually and slowly so you don't shock your plant. Eventually they can be left out all day and all night, and then you know that they're ready to be planted out in the garden. Now, spring can be a very hopeful time filled with crocuses and the trees are blooming. It's one of my favorite seasons. But in the vegetable garden, it's actually kind of a weird time of year. Your crops might be planted out or soon to be planted out, but they're not quite ready to eat yet. So this time of year has been traditionally called the hunger gap. Your larder or root cellars may be getting a little bit thin, there's less vegetables in the field, but we do still have some winter vegetables at this point in our garden. It's going to show us how to cook them. Leeks are an underrated member of the allium family, at least here in the US. They're hardy and easy to grow, and in the US they'll overwinter in zone 7 and above. They're super mild and are native to Egypt and the Middle East. They've actually been cultivated by humans for over 4,000 years. They are a bit of a dirtier vegetable. I like to give them a good clean in the garden by just stripping off their outer leaves. I also cut off a large amount of the green leaves as they're not as tasty as the mild white lower portion of the stalk. And they'll also keep longer if you remove the excess green leafy part before storage. Once I'm home, I'll give them a good rinse. Then I'll split them lengthwise to get all the dirt out and let them fully dry. While they're drying, I preheat the oven with a baking sheet inside to 400 degrees. Once the leeks are a little bit drier, I'll toss them in olive oil and salt. When the oven is to temperature, I'll place the leeks cut side down on the hot sheet and then cover it all with foil. When the tray goes in the oven, the temperature goes down to 300 degrees. Bake them until they're tender and starting to brown, which is about 1.5 hours. Then uncover the leeks and turn them cut side up. Increase the temperature of the oven back to 400 degrees and roast the leeks until golden brown, about 15 to 20 minutes. Well, that's it for March. If I could give you one piece of advice for this month, it's to leave the leaves on your spring bulbs. Enjoy their blooms now and then let them be messy for a little while longer. It can take months for the leaves to fully die back, but you want to allow that process to happen naturally and gradually. Remember, the leaves now give you blooms next year. So resist that urge to tidy your garden. I know I said this before, but get out into the yard, get your hands dirty. 15 minutes of weeding now can save you literally hours later. Here in Portland, English ivy and holly are super invasive. You see them everywhere. Ivy chokes out trees alongside the roads. And I feel like every time I go out in my front yard, I find little seedlings of ivy and holly trying to pop up just out of nowhere. I haven't even seen one of those plants in our neighbors' yards. But still, the ground is soft now. They're super easy to pull out. So just spend a little bit of time getting outside and getting out into the dirt. It's also not too late to plant pea seeds. I wouldn't wait till any later into the month, really, but get them in March at the latest. This is a good time of year, too, for getting root crops out, for getting leafy greens like lettuces, and any type of brassica. They like cool weather, and we have plenty of cool gray days to come. Enjoy the spring while it's here. Get out into the sun and the rain, the rainbows that come along with it, and enjoy it as spring brings us daydreams of summer. See you in April.